Well, would you look at that? What do you know? Long sleeves, no sunglasses, gray skies. Am I still in Florida? Actually, I am. Still here in my neighborhood, guys, doing these walks. I hope everybody had a wonderful Christmas, Hanukkah, whatever holiday you celebrated this weekend. I hope it was wonderful for you and your family, and I hope everybody was able to stay warm. As you can see, the cold is finally catching up with me here in Florida, which I knew it would at some point, but you know, I'll take it. It's a nice break from the 90-degree temperatures that we typically get most of the year, so I'm not complaining, guys. As long as it's not super windy, you know, they're talking rain, maybe I'll have to look out for that. But I'm pretty well prepared for it today, so if I do get a little rain, I should be okay. Now, one topic that I've really enjoyed covering a few times here on the channel has been remote work. And it's been a while since we last talked about it, and now's a great time to bring this up because as we're heading into the new year, a lot of people are still working remotely from policies that went in place during the pandemic. And there was a new report done from Bloom, and they say that around 30% of paid workdays now are done remotely across the United States. So that's a pretty significant number of people working from home in general, okay? And that number has actually shrunk significantly because the first year of the pandemic, back in 2020, that number was as high as 60% of paid workdays being done from home. So as you can see, the amount of remote work has reduced significantly since it first started back at the beginning of the pandemic. And this is particularly hitting Silicon Valley and San Francisco harder than most places due to all of the tech companies in the area, and they're the ones who are most likely to have a large amount of remote workers. And the amount of office check-ins in San Francisco is down 40% right now from pre-pandemic levels. So 40% less people coming to the office than before. And one of the big question marks with remote work is, well, now that we're seeing a bunch of these tech layoffs, is this going to put more people in the position where they need to come back to the office coming into next year? Like, what's going to happen with this? Because there was a lot of companies implementing policies over the past several months saying that you need to have some sort of hybrid work schedule. You got to come in at least 2 to 3 days a week. And these are places that all used to be 100% remote during the height of the pandemic. So what's going to happen with remote work? Is it here to stay? Is it going to be returning to a more in-office type of situation? What's going on? And it's pretty much determined that remote work is not going to go away, guys. It's going to be here to stay, but probably at lower percentages than we saw during the height of the pandemic. However, this is coming with a big caveat, and I know a lot of people want remote work. You know, they're happy with their remote situation and they want to keep it that way. But here's something that a lot of people might not realize is the companies that are deciding to keep their remote work policies in place are doing this for a very smart financial reason for themselves. If you think this is just about you and being able to, you know, keep their employees happy, well, there's more to it than that. Because it was determined in this same report from Bloom, workers value remote work so much that they equate that equal to getting an 8% pay raise on top of any cost of living raise that they might get. So what a lot of companies are doing is instead of giving their employees raises right now, they're just letting them work from home. Now, you might say, well, that's wonderful, I don't care. I'll take working at remote home for the lower pay because now I don't have to commute, I don't have to go out to lunch, things like that, which probably could be smart, right? You might actually be saving money if you're not spending a lot of money on the commute anymore. And obviously time is the most valuable thing that we all have. And if you're wasting an hour each way to go for a commute to work every day, then that quickly adds up. However, one thing that people might not realize is this can be a tactic now used against people in the future as more people want to work remotely. A lot of companies might give you the choice and say, okay, you can work remote, but we're going to pay you 15% less than somebody who comes into the office or has a hybrid work schedule or whatever. I think somebody has the fireplace going over here right now. I actually miss that smell a lot. You know, growing up in Illinois and going through 20 winters up there before I moved here, I miss having the fireplace. It's a really nice holiday thing to have going on and have that warmth going when it's cold outside. Well, what do you know? We got one for sale over here. This place is listed for $2.7 million. They actually tried earlier this year for $2.95 and no takers, so let's see this time. But if you notice, they bought during the last housing market bubble and got a $200,000 discount from the previous owner, so I hope they don't get offended when they get some lowball offers this time around. So in case you haven't picked up on this yet, basically what's happening is companies are deciding to let their employees continue working from home rather than give them a pay raise, because this actually saves them more money, because this would cost more on their bottom line than it does to just let them continue working from home. Because you got to look at this from the company's point of view. As long as they're getting the work done that they need to get done, that's fine for them. And maybe if you're not as productive as maybe they think you would be in the office, they're still saving money by not paying you as much. So this is the big thing to remember. This is a capitalist country here in the United States, and anything that saves a company money and is good for its bottom line is highly likely to stick around, okay? And so remote work, now they have found a way to make this become profitable for them. So you can pretty much guarantee that they're going to keep this in the future. According to ZipRecruiter, 11% of all the jobs on the site are remote work jobs right now, and back in 2019, only 4% of them were. So as you can see, there are more remote work jobs available now than there were pre-pandemic. But another thing to watch out for is if you are in the tech space, whether you're remote or not, doesn't really matter. In this same article, they were talking about how it's very likely that the worst of the tech layoffs are yet to come, because they say that usually a lot of the tech layoffs come in January. So be on the lookout for this if you are in the tech space, because you just never know when you could be the next one on the chopping block. And just be ready, guys. That's what we talk about all the time here on the channel. You know, having a backup plan, or at least having an emergency fund saved on the side to help get you through rough times is going to make or break the difference of how well you're going to survive a layoff in an environment like this. Now, the other day I had a lot of people comment about that horror story from Alameda County over in California, where they're going to be basically making it illegal for landlords to do criminal background checks on their prospective tenants, which in itself is a criminal act if you ask me. And somebody made a very good point in the comments that I just want to address real quick. They said, well, Michael, you know, a lot of the people who are convicted felons are in for drug charges, and you know, they're not dangerous criminals, they just were drug dealers, or you know, were caught with possession of drugs or whatever. Okay, fair enough. So there needs to be a distinction with this type of thing. It can't just be all criminal background checks are illegal, but what they're doing is they're making it so that anybody who has a criminal background, regardless of what you've done, you know, they're not checking into that. And that's what makes it dangerous for the rest of the neighbors. Like I said, you can have criminals that have, you know, committed murder, rape, or anything worse than that, and living right next door, and you won't even know. So that's the worst part about it. But do I think there needs to be a distinction between what people have done? Obviously, yes, you can be convicted of a felony, and if it wasn't a dangerous crime that hurt other people or whatever, then that's not nearly as bad as somebody who killed people, right? So I think we could all probably agree on that. But the reason I'm bringing this up is because there was another interesting landlord real estate horror story out today out of New York. And there was this landlord over there that bought this dilapidated property over on Coney Island. They paid $1.3 million for this piece of crap place, essentially. But here's what happened with these people. They bought this place in 2019, $1.3 million as an investment property, right? And the owners were traveling when the pandemic hit. And once everything went into lockdown, these guys were stuck out of town for a few months and were not able to return back to the States due to all the lockdowns that were happening. Well, come to find out, one of the neighbors who lived behind their house was basically squatting in their investment property that they just bought because they weren't even there to oversee anything. And what happened was this guy decided to go ahead and rent out this place illegally to a bunch of illegal people on top of that. So they had this tiny little place and they were renting it out to 10 people, and now the landlord is in trouble because they just got busted by NYPD for the 10 people who are living in this property illegally, and they just issued them a $5,000 citation to the landlords for this, even though they weren't the ones doing it. Think about this, guys. There was a squatter in their property renting out the property to someone else, like Airbnb arbitrage, but completely illegal. And who gets the fine? The landlord. If that's not like New York enough for you, I don't know what is. I mean, these stories, you cannot make this stuff up. It is unbelievable that this is happening to me. And apparently, these guys have been struggling big time because I don't know exactly what the landlord-tenant laws are in New York, but these people have been getting away with this for quite some time. And now it's to the point where they have been renting this place out since 2019, and they have racked up over $370,000 in violations and fines for the decaying condition of this house because it's not in rentable condition, but they have tenants there, even though it's not their tenants. And here's the real kicker out of all this. The city inspectors and the people who are issuing these landlords fines are aware of the squatter situation, and they still continue to give them fines. And on top of the $370,000 they have in fines and violations, they also have $100,000 owed in back taxes and utilities. So can you spell foreclosure? Sounds like these guys are heading for it real quick, because these guys are getting themselves into such a hole. Like, it would take probably more than a decade to dig out of this, turning this property into a positive rental, fixing all the repairs that need to be done. The real troubling thing about this story is that the city inspectors know that there's a squatter there doing this, but yet they're finding the property owner. And on top of that, knowing that this person was not able to get back to the US to do anything about this for a few months, and depending on how long it takes to evict somebody in New York, these people have been able to get away with this ever since. So who's the real criminal here, guys? The landlord? Because they're being punished like they're the criminal, but yet the actual criminals, who are the squatters, who have actually been profiting off of this, get to walk scot-free. I mean, is that justice, guys? And I know a lot of people are going to say, oh, this is a political opinion, Michael. No, it's not. This is a common sense thing, guys. It really is common sense. There's nothing political about this. You can make it political all you want in your own mind, but I think anyone with a solid head on their shoulders would agree that this is a criminal act being performed by the squatters, but yet the property owners are being punished. So I don't see in what world that makes any sense, but apparently in the state of New York it does. So like we said in the other video, guys, be very careful where you're going to be investing in real estate into the future, because if you're stuck with situations like this, imagine how far upside down you can get on this rental property. And imagine if you own other rental properties, this can take away profit from everything that you're doing, because there's just too many problems with one of them that just completely ruins your entire portfolio. And this whole situation honestly can ruin someone's life, not just your investment portfolio. So think about these things before you make an investment somewhere, because this can make or break you. I know after hearing this story, I'll never be buying an investment property in New York. You can count on that. And it's not a political opinion. It's a common sense decision. Now, it should come as no surprise that this year there were huge losses if you're invested in the stock market. And one thing that I saw recently is that there was a record amount of money pulled out of the stock market over this past week. This was reported by Bank of America. A record $42 billion from the stock market was pulled out in order to take advantage of something called tax loss harvesting, which in basic terms is a way to sell off stock that has lost money in the stock market, and then you use those losses to counteract income that you made from your regular income or gains that you made in the stock market. And this is a way to minimize your tax liability with the IRS by doing this. But as if the stock market wasn't already doing bad enough, this obviously has made things worse, because people are pulling out record amounts of money from their investments in order to take advantage of this, which you can't blame them, because the tax loss harvesting is a legal thing that people can do according to the IRS, and there's no shame in taking advantage of that. But obviously, if you're remaining invested in the market, this is going to hurt your portfolio even further. Maybe you want to take advantage of this before the year's over, guys. This is not financial advice in any way, but it's just a heads up that a lot of people are doing this in record numbers. The good thing about this is you can use those losses against future income as well. So the idea behind this is to take the loss now to report it on income that you made later on. And just like the tax loss harvesting is not financial advice, I'm also not giving you financial advice when I tell you that everybody should own a little bit of gold and silver, because that's a personal belief of mine. It's something that I actually do and practice myself, and has turned out to be a very positive thing for me so far. I have not lost money owning gold and silver, I can tell you that much. You know, when I see stuff like this on how far the stock market dropped this year, obviously it was a terrible year to be invested in the market, and a lot of people lost a lot of money, which is pretty evident by this whole tax loss harvesting thing that's going on now at the end of the year. This is just another reason to me, guys, that you should own gold and silver, because first of all, having money in the stock market is not a tangible asset, okay? You cannot touch it or feel it or see it. It's just numbers on a screen. And at the end of the day, you don't really own anything besides a claim to a small piece of that company, right? But when you own physical metals, when you have gold and silver in your own possession, whether it's in your hand or in a vault somewhere that you decide to keep it, it's something that you have physical access to it, that you can pick up and hold anytime you want and sell it anytime you want as well. So there are a lot of advantages to having physical assets over paper ones like the stock market. And these days, with how crazy inflation is, one of the main things I love about gold and silver now is the fact that the Fed cannot print it, guys. The Fed can print all the dollars that they want, but they cannot print gold and silver, which helps it retain its value. So this is something that everyone needs to understand about gold and silver versus currency or fiat money. And as you guys might have noticed, I don't do that many sponsorships on the channel, but when I decide to do one, it's because it's something that I either believe in and I use and own myself or use myself, or it's something that I think it aligns with the channel that I think could be a good fit. And I've told you guys before, it's no secret that I personally buy and I own gold and silver myself. So I turn down about 97% of the sponsorship opportunities that come up for this channel, but I'm proud to have National Gold Group as a sponsor for this channel right now. And that's why I feel good about telling you guys that maybe it's not such a bad idea to diversify a little bit and own a little bit of physical gold and silver. So if you want to get your hands on some physical metals, make sure to give National Gold Group a call at 1-888-840-5945, or just use the link down in the description below. Get in contact with National Gold Group today. Now here's another interesting story out of Florida. For the first time in 60 years, Florida has become once again the fastest growing state in the entire United States. So much so that Florida saw a 1.9% increase in population from 2021 to 2022. They say that Florida's population has grown every single year since 1946. And this is at a time when all of the U.S. population was slowing down as a whole. But it's not just Florida picking up new residents. This is an overall trend of people moving to the South in general. In fact, the South saw the greatest amount of people moving, more than any other region across the country, an increase in 1.1% of people moving to the South in general. Literally second place was the western half of the United States at only 0.2%. So it's a pretty big difference. There's a lot more people moving to the South than any other region of the country by far. And places like the Northeast and the Midwest are actually losing people right now, guys. And this is why I keep telling people when it comes to housing to maybe look at different places like this where there could be opportunity. Like, a lot of people are always asking me what I think is going to happen here in Florida with home prices and this and that. And Florida saw a massive run up in home prices everywhere across the state during this huge run up in the housing market. But if people keep moving in here at this pace, you know, I don't know if we're going to be able to see the home prices go down to the level that a lot of people want to see. I mean, hopefully we do, but there's no guarantee of that, especially if we're going to be continuing to be the fastest growing state. Because in the past, I made videos about, the fact that Florida was the #1 state people were moving to. It doesn't necessarily mean it's the fastest growing, but now it's taking the crown on different things, guys. We're the fastest growing state. We are the state that the most people are moving to. Like, it is just insanity here. If you don't already live here and you've been looking for somewhere else to go to buy affordable housing, Florida's not it anymore. There's really no such thing as affordable housing here anymore, unless you're willing to live kind of in the boondocks or in a lower population area, in a rural area of Florida, places like that. So I'm definitely not telling anyone like, hey, you definitely should not move to Florida. Obviously, a lot of you have your retirement goals and dreams set on that, and I'm never telling anyone to give up on that. But just be aware of what you're getting yourself into, because Florida is not the cheap retirement destination that it was of the past, that's for sure. So get ready to pay the new prices of Florida. The only thing that I think could really impact the cost of housing here the most are the insane high insurance premiums that everybody's going to be paying, as well as the property taxes, because those two things have been increasing exponentially over the past year and are set to increase even further into 2023. And we haven't really seen if this is going to impact home prices here. And I know this is an issue everywhere, but it is a major one in Florida. I would say probably the #1 concern when it comes to the cost of housing here. So if it gets to the point where these new insurance premiums are completely unaffordable for people, the property taxes start eating up too much of people's budgets as well, that's going to lower home prices, because we are seeing lower demand just like many other places, and sales are starting to slump here as well. So we'll see how much this is going to affect things into 2023. If you guys enjoyed this video, click the bell notification down below. That way YouTube will send you an alert every time I publish a new video. And if you don't want to wait, check out my next one on the screen right over here, and I'll see you in the next one.